If we are one, what is this thing called death? What happens when we die? And when this inevitability takes place, where, if anywhere, do we go? Do we simply cease to be? Do we simply become the nothingness of eternity? In our last episode, we gained a greater understanding of the term cosmic consciousness and how it is usually described less as something you achieve and more as something you uncover by steadily clearing away the things that may conceal it. Also, how cosmic consciousness is usually described as a heightened or expanded state of awareness in which a person feels directly, vividly connected with the whole universe or reality as a single living unity. That it is often presented as a higher or more inclusive form of consciousness than ordinary self-awareness. But if we are one, why would we even seek such an exalted state if it only means that nothing will exist after our awareness within this human form is over? Is there nothing more? Or is there something much more? Something greater than this single physical expression? The simple fact is that we are not merely this physical body that we occupy, but are eternal beings created from God's source itself. That this physical reality is nothing more than a dream in which we eventually wake up and remember that we are dreaming. That our true reality is in the infinite, omnipresent spiritual realms, and that we are individuated sparks of all that is, that we are all that is itself, created to have experience and remember who and what we actually are. Hi, I'm Daryl T. Johnson, a musician, a teacher, and a QHHT hypnosis practitioner. I'd like to welcome all of you to episode 14 of If We Are One. Hello everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. In this episode, I want to talk about the concept of death and how it is in truth nothing more than a well-orchestrated illusion that serves as the seeming final chapter of our 3D experience in this or any incarnation. Now, to be clear, I want to, right at the outset, squelch any notions that when we die, we're done. That it's all over. Granted, there are several secular and philosophical viewpoints asserting that when we die, your consciousness simply ends and there is no further personal experience. These views generally see death as the final boundary of individual experience, with no soul or awareness surviving. So just for the record, let's examine these notions a little more directly. Some of these viewpoints include philosophical naturalism, or what they call physicalism, which holds that mind and consciousness are entirely the result of physical processes in the brain. When the brain irreversibly stops functioning, the conscious self ceases as well. Under this view, there is no immaterial soul to go anywhere after death. Death is the permanent end of the person, even if their matter is recycled in nature. Next, there is something called existential nihilism. which often combines no ultimate meaning with no continuation after death. Life has no higher purpose, and death is simply the point at which a temporary, meaningless existence stops. Some forms of nihilism explicitly deny any afterlife, considering all such beliefs unfounded attempts to escape the reality that both life and consciousness end entirely at death. Whew, what a downer. Then there's atheism, which strictly defined is only disbelief in gods, plural. But many atheists also reject any kind of supernatural afterlife and assume that death is final. On this common atheist view, life is a one-time biological event. When the organism dies, the person is gone, and any talk of heaven, reincarnation, or continued personal consciousness is seen as wishful thinking. Next we have secular humanism, where many secular humanists and non-religious existentialists also assume there is no personal survival after death, but they respond by emphasizing creating meaning, value, and ethical life within this finite span. For them, you cease to be at death, yet that finality is precisely what makes how you live, love, and act now so weighty and significant. The problem with all of these viewpoints is, if one were to simply take the time to peel back the onion, as it were, on the question of whether or not there is life after death, they would quickly find a mountain of empirical evidence to support the understanding that indeed we continue as conscious beings long after the body ceases to function. Take the idea of reincarnation, for instance. When a non-physical essence, such as the soul, consciousness, or spirit, survives biological death and is reborn into a new body or form to continue its journey, one need only look to research done by the Division of Perceptual Studies, DOPS, at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville, Virginia. This is a research group devoted to the rigorous evaluation of empirical evidence for extraordinary human experiences and capacities. Their primary focus is investigating the mind's relationship to the body and the possibility of consciousness surviving physical death. Founded in 1967 by psychiatrist Dr. Ian Stevenson and now led by Dr. Jim Tucker, DOPS investigates empirical evidence for consciousness surviving death, with a major focus on children reporting past life memories suggestive of reincarnation. DOPS maintains a database of over 2,500 cases worldwide, emphasizing rigorous verification, birthmarks, matching past wounds, and solved cases, about 70%, linking claims to verifiable deceased individuals. This organization prioritizes cases of young children, typically between the ages of 2 to 6 years, who spontaneously describe previous lives, often with violent deaths, about 70% of the cases, before forgetting by about age 7 or 8. They verify details against records, interview families, and explore correlations like phobias or birth defects, while testing alternative explanations like fraud or cryptomnesia, which is a memory error where forgetting information resurfaces unconsciously, such as from books, conversations, media, or dreams, leading someone to mistake it for an original idea or personal recollection. Just to give you a few case study examples, and you can research these for more in-depth information. There is James Leninger, a U.S. boy who recalled being World War II pilot James Houston, killed in a flaming crash. He named the ship Natoma Bay, squadron mates, and crash details verified by records. He recognized Houston's sister from photos. He even visited some of the surviving squadron members, now very much elderly, recounting their names and stories about them. There's Ryan Hammonds. At age 5, Ryan identified himself as 1930s Hollywood agent Marty Martin from old movie stills, naming 55 specific facts, wives, addresses, daughters, later confirmed via census and death certificates. One of my personal favorites, I love this story, is of Barbro Carlin, a Swedish writer and dressage rider, born 1954 and died 2022, who was awarded the 2002 United States Dressage Federation Gold Medal Award. When she was a young child, she had spontaneous memories of a past life as a young girl who died 9 years before she was born. She had vivid memories of this young girl who died violently. At age 10, Barbro and her parents went to Amsterdam on vacation. The father wanted to go to see the Anne Frank Museum. Barbro said that it was very close by and she knew how to get there. The parents were perplexed. How could she know how to get somewhere that she had never been before? But sure enough, Barbro walked directly to where the museum was located. Inside the former house turned museum, Barbro said excitedly that the pictures of movie stars were still on the wall. The mother looked at the wall and told her there was nothing there. But the tour guide corrected the mother and said that the pictures that Anne Frank had clipped out of movie magazines were indeed on that wall at one time. Now keep in mind that Barbro's early recollections to her parents that she was Anne Frank came years before the publishing of the book, The Diary of Anne Frank. So they didn't even know who she was claiming to be until much later. Barbro became, much like Anne Frank, a writing prodigy at a very young age. Very compelling. These examples challenge materialist views of consciousness, suggesting there is indeed life after death. Again, you're welcome to research these and other cases on your own, and I defy you to discount them as something other than what they actually are. Having shared these case studies, I would be remiss if I didn't mention my own work as a QHHT past life regression hypnosis practitioner. I continue to be amazed at the level of insight and detail provided to me by my clients who recount past life experiences that, through their subconscious, their higher self, prove to be relevant to important themes taking place in their current life. They share facts, historical details, and correlations between people in their past life recount as individuals who are now in their current life. Questions are answered and perspective is given, which pave the way for personal healing. My work is both exciting, I never know where they may take me, gratifying and humbling. And I am so honored to help facilitate healing, both mentally, emotionally, and physically, to the clients who trust me with their care. If you haven't already had this life-changing experience, I highly recommend you contact either me or seek out a QHHT practitioner in your area to book a session. It can be life-changing. Now back to the topic at hand. Different spiritual traditions answer what happens when we die in distinct ways. But most see death not as an end of consciousness, but as a transition, unveiling a deeper level of reality that was already present. Within Hindu beliefs, there's a saying, death is but a turning of the endless wheel of life. In Vedanta and Hindu views, the true self, or Atman, is never born and never dies. Only the body falls away, while consciousness continues and eventually takes a new form shaped by karma. Death is seen as a transmigration. The subtle body and karmic tendencies move on, while relationship of one's identity as Atman, Brahman, is described as the true immortality beyond the cycle of birth and death. Buddhism has a similar belief structure, referencing something known as bardo and rebirth. Tibetan Buddhism teaches that after death, consciousness moves through an intermediate state called the bardo, an in-between realm where the mind encounters visions and experiences conditioned by its karma. In this view, there is no permanent soul. Instead, a stream of mind and karmic tendencies continues, moving from one life to another until awakening ends the cycle. As I had referenced in an earlier episode, early Christian teachings actually embraced the concept of reincarnation, elucidated by such early Christian sages as Origen of Alexandria, circa 185 to 254 AD, who was an influential early Christian theologian and scholar. He is thought by some to be an early proponent of reincarnation, though there is some controversy as to whether this is true or not. The ongoing debate over reincarnation in early Christianity largely ended in 553 AD by the Second Council of Constantinople, where they condemned certain Origenist ideas that resemble pre-existence and cyclical schemes, which later church tradition read as incompatible with reincarnation-style views. Because Origen of Alexandria has speculated about pre-existent souls and complex cosmic histories, later anti-reincarnation arguments sometimes point to the Council's condemnation of Origenism as a turning point against any doctrine of multiple earth lives. Today, classical Christian doctrine does not accept reincarnation. Instead, it teaches a single earthly life followed by judgment and resurrection. Any explicit belief in multiple earth lives is outside of orthodoxy. I personally believe that the works of those advocating for reincarnation were banned not so much because of their veracity, but because it was simply inconvenient to the need to control the Christian faithful. This is just my opinion. Interestingly, Jewish belief in reincarnation, known as Gilgul, literally meaning cycle or revolving, is not a core or universal tenet like in Hinduism or Buddhism, but it holds significant place in mystical and Kabbalistic traditions. Here, the soul, or its spark, reincarnates into new bodies to elevate itself, often tied to karma-like refinement. A soul might return for a specific purpose, like atoning for idolatry via martyrdom, until fully purified. For the record, Islam overwhelmingly rejects reincarnation, viewing it as incompatible with core Quranic teachings on a single earthly life, followed by judgment, resurrection, and eternal paradise or hell. Enough said about that. From a mystical, non-duality perspective, what dies is the temporary body-mind structure, while the underlying awareness that is one with all reality is untouched. Recognizing oneself as that awareness helps to dissolve the fear of death. From this lens, death is more like a shift of perspective within a single field of consciousness rather than a journey of a separate entity going somewhere else. Now, let's talk about near-death experiences. Many near-death experiencers report leaving the body, heightened clarity, movement through a tunnel or toward light, encounters with beings or deceased loved ones, a life review, and a powerful sense of peace and unconditional love. These reports do not prove metaphysics, but they have deeply influenced modern spiritual views by suggesting that consciousness can operate independently of the brain, at least temporarily near clinical death. Now, I have personal experience with this, as my older sister, several years ago, died in a hospital bed in Washington, D.C. for several minutes, and was then revived after medical staff had worked hard to bring her back. She has, to this day, full and vivid recollection of everything that she experienced, including her conscious decision to return and the detailed process of re-entering the body after floating above it for several minutes, seeing everyone in the room and recounting what they were saying. It's very compelling, and perhaps there might be an opportunity to explore this more fully with her in a future episode. From a unity consciousness perspective, all of this can be framed as the one exploring transitions of form. The individual experience after death, whether bardo, heaven-like realms, or dissolution into pure awareness, is a shift in how the one knows itself through that particular stream of consciousness. In that sense, death is a reconfiguration of the data stream within all that is. Your life, relationships, and choices become integrated as a kind of lived data set that enriches the whole, while what you really are was never born and never actually ends. From a spiritual point of view, and I've talked about this before, one of the most unhinged and mind-bending ideas is this. Some mystical traditions and quantum-inspired philosophies suggest that reality itself might exist only because consciousness observes it. In other words, without awareness, without witness, there may be no reality at all. This belief turns the entire universe inside out. Most people assume consciousness comes from the universe. But these spiritual perspectives propose the opposite, that the universe comes from consciousness. Now, I really need for you to take some time and ponder this supposition. Matter, time, even individuality could be projections in a vast ocean of awareness, experiencing itself through infinite forms and lifetimes. If you haven't already done so, I would recommend that you read The Holographic Universe by Michael Talbert. If you do, your perspective will be changed. Now, some mystics say that when you die, you don't really go anywhere because you haven't actually left anywhere. The entire play of your life, including death, unfolds within a single, timeless consciousness that was never born and can never die. Let me repeat that. And can never die. To them, awakening means realizing you are the universe looking back on itself, pretending to be a human for a while, as in a spiritual being having a human experience. The notion that individual consciousness is a subset of a greater unified consciousness, often called all that is, aligns deeply with many spiritual philosophies that describe reality as fundamentally interconnected. According to Vedanta and similar traditions, individual consciousness merges into a singular, undifferentiated experience where distinctions dissolve, revealing profound oneness with reality that transcends everyday separation. This unified consciousness is akin to a vast, singular field of awareness in which individual experiences serve as data points, allowing the one to experience itself in infinite forms and perspectives. When ego boundaries soften, it allows the realization of being part of a greater whole, leading to extraordinary synchronicities and spiritual awakening through breaking the illusion of separateness. Now, this understanding can dissolve conflicts and foster harmony by recognizing the common cosmic kinship beneath religious, cultural, or personal differences. Again, we are one. Life is a stable pattern of observation. Sensations, thoughts, relationships, all organized around a narrative called me or you. Awareness is continually measuring this pattern, giving it continuity and reality. Death in this framing is a radical change in that pattern. The familiar structure of body-based perceptions and personal story falls apart, but awareness does not vanish. Instead, the content and organization of experience change or quiet radically. I mean, if reality exists only in relation to observation, then birth is the arising of a new coherent window through which awareness observes a world, and death is the closing of that particular window, not the ending of the sky it opened into. This matches many mystical views where the apparent individual dissolves, but the underlying awareness is untouched. So, the concept where individual data points contribute to the experience of the one embodies a profound spiritual truth. The multiplicity of existence emerges from and returns to a single unified consciousness. Our unique lives enrich the whole, and in turn, the whole informs each experience, creating a dynamic, ever-expanding tapestry of universal self-awareness. Our life in this physical reality is but one subset of an infinite set of probabilities and confirmed experiential choices, where we live our lives, have our experiences, do the best we can with what we know, grow from what we learn, and eventually pass on to the realms beyond. So as I said at the outset, physical reality is nothing more than a dream in which, upon death, we wake up and remember that we were dreaming. That our true reality is in the infinite spiritual realms, and that we are individuated sparks of all that is, that we are in fact all that is itself. We'll be talking more about these and other topics in future installments. And if there's anything that you would like for me to discuss, or any questions you may have about anything that I have shared, please feel free to mention it by leaving a question or a comment in the comment section. As always, if you have found any of this information at all helpful or enlightening, please like, subscribe, and share with others. I continue to see new people coming to this space. I truly appreciate those of you who are letting others know about this. And I am so grateful to all of you for being a part of this ongoing movement to a oneness consciousness. So as always, in parting, I send you my love. And if we are one, let's all live in peace, love, and joy.